Thank you. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to welcome our new board member. Earlier this evening, the Board of Education voted to appoint Kimberly Gallo to the vacant seat to serve until November 2023. I want to thank the Naugatuck community for your patience and support as we went through the process of filling the vacant seat. We had numerous well-qualified applicants, and we encouraged them to stay involved and share their thoughts and opinions with us. I'd like to welcome Kim as she begins her service on the board, and we wish her all the best as she joins us. And if she would like to make any remarks, I'd turn it over to her.
My first official act is to press the button. It's a proud moment. Many of you know me. My name is Kim Gallo. My husband and I graduated from Naugatuck High School and Naugatuck Public Schools, as well as our parents, as well as our 3 children. I've spent 40 years in the public schools, 22 of them in Naugatuck. I like to say that the most important things I learned about education, I learned in the Naugatuck Public Schools. I thought that 40 years was a good run, so I retired with the class of 2021. And so even though I'm not interested in being a principal any longer, mostly because I'm tired, I have a passion for education that doesn't want to leave me. So this is an awesome opportunity. I'm completely aware of the fact that there were many other good people that wanted to do this work, and I will do my work in a way that honors that and that honors the school system that raised me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome again. I'd also like to take a second to acknowledge our superintendent. Today happens to be his birthday. So if we could all say happy birthday to Superintendent Montini. Happy birthday. Thank you. That brings us into discussion, possible action emanating from executive session. Could I have a motion to approve stipulated agreement number 1 regarding student conduct as presented in executive session?
I'll make a motion to approve the stipulated agreement regarding student 1 as presented in executive session.
We have a motion by Mr. Stolozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to, could I have a motion to approve the stipulated agreement number 2 regarding student conduct as presented in executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Grant. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Great. That brings us to public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to make public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. I'll do one last call for public comment. Seeing none, that brings us to the superintendent's report, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Montini.
Thank you, Chairman Lickey. It is my pleasure to invite members from the City Hill Middle School community to share a presentation in regards to their school, some data, and planning with you all.
Thank you so much for having me here. I had an opportunity to bring some of our students with us, so they'll be joining me in just a bit. I might be the first person to break the microphone, so I don't know. Do I have it right? Take it out and just hold it? Okay. All right, there we go. So this evening, the intent is to discuss how we intend on bringing up our scores We saw a pretty much the same in terms of our scores from year 21 and 22, but prior to that, we really plummeted. We were doing much better. So it is our intent to get both our reading, ELA, and our science scores back up where we feel good. We had been on a nice trajectory pre-pandemic, so that is our intent. We will discuss that this evening. We're going to discuss how we intend to improve our climate and culture at City Hill, and then how we hope to increase student engagement through some of our revised curriculum and our new courses. You'll see in your folder, while I'm not going to go over every piece of data, I did include some data for you. I also included our entire strategic plan. That's on the right side. And then there's just some items of interest on the left side as well. Last year when I came, I ended my presentation with this quote, and it still resonates with me even this year. Not far from where I live is a place called Death Valley. Death Valley is the hottest, driest place in America, and nothing grows there. Nothing grows there because it doesn't rain. Hence, Death Valley. In the winter of 2004, it rained in Death Valley. 7 inches of rain fell over a very short period. And in the spring of 2005, there was a phenomenon. The whole floor of Death Valley was carpeted in flowers for a while. What it proved is this: the Death Valley isn't dead, it's dormant. Right beneath the surface are the seeds of possibility waiting for the right conditions to come about. And with organic systems, if the conditions are right, life is inevitable. It happens all the time. You take an area, a school, and you change the conditions. You give people a different sense of possibility, a different set of expectations, a broader range of opportunities. You cherish and value the relationships between teachers and learners. You offer people the discretion to be creative and to innovate in what they do, and schools that were once bereft spring to life. And that's an excerpt from one of my favorite, Sir Ken Robinson. I think it's fitting because we have worked so hard on culture and climate at City Hill, and we know that when the conditions are right, learning will happen again, and we feel pretty confident about that. It's also fitting because, you might be able to see from some of the goodie bags I provided you with, City Hill this year is a farm to school institute. So I'll be, speaking to that throughout, and we brought you some homemade goods from some of our students, from some of the enrichment classes that they're in. We also have a little succulent that we added to you. We gave one of those to each of the teachers because our theme this year is that when teachers grow, so do learners. And I'll be focusing quite a bit about that. So the strategic plan starts with culture and climate. This year, I came last year and talked with you and asked you to allow me to change my schedule so that instead of 3 teams per grade level, we could have 4. That means additional smaller learning communities. In addition to that, we're spending a great deal of time on responsive classroom and restorative practices to build community with our students. We want them to understand the impact of their choices and help them to make better choices. Part of what we do is not in isolation. We have to integrate with all of our community agencies. So we do quite a bit with Naugatuck Youth Services. This year, in lieu of some of the suspensions, we're able to partner with youth services, and that will be coming soon. We've already started it, but not on a grand scale like I would like to. But to give our students an opportunity, if they get into some trouble, to do some restorative work through Naugatuck Youth Services in addition to our faculty. Right now, we have Wellmore and Stokes. They come into our building along with CHMA to help with some mental health services for our students. We have an SRO that works closely with us. And we also have partnered with the YMCA. We co-wrote a grant with the YMCA to provide our students with an opportunity for a summer institute. And I'll speak about that in just a minute. In addition to that, we've really spent some time giving our students and our faculty a new way of thinking about their emotions. We have provided our students with a reflection room and staffed that reflection room with our support staff so that when students need a moment, rather than maybe blowing up, they get an opportunity to really think, reflect, and then get right back in class. That's really important to us. We have individualized behavior plans that really capitalize on the strengths of our students. And then we also are just about poised to train 60 plus students to deliver engaging lessons. We will use the content from the YMCA, but we'll put it in our restorative and responsive classroom template so that it feels similar to what the students are used to. And faculty will not lead that. Students are going to lead those lessons instead. This is very similar to the Wingman program that we had done previously. I have the pleasure of inviting to the podium 3 individuals who participated this summer. When everybody else was enjoying their summer, they were busy at the YMCA getting poised to be leaders of our school. So I would like to invite up Donald Brown, Josiah Lloyd, and Eric Harriet.
Um, my name is Donald Brown. We participated in a Dare Yourself to Lead Summer Institute. The Naugatuck Youth Services and the YMCA partnered to train about a dozen students. We learned about character traits and what it means to be a leader. I personally learned that it's not bad to try something new because it could be fun and you just don't know it yet until you try. So that's what I learned.
My name is Josiah Lloyd, and a few lessons we learned about included equity, respect, and integrity. Integrity means having morals and standing up for what's right. Equity means like fair or equal, and respect. I think that's like self-explanatory, but we had this conversation while we were at the program about it was like one of those questions. It was like a trick question. So it was like, is it better to give respect or get respect? And it was sort of a deep conversation. We talked about depending on the person, or giving and getting could be it can go both ways basically. So, and one of the things that we learned was a team building activity, and I think it was one of my favorites. It was where we had chairs and we had to set up yarn around the chairs like a laser maze, and we had to try to help each other get through. And after watching each other get through repeatedly, then we would try to set a record, and I'm pretty sure Eric beat that record. He went right through it. And it was like one of the team building exercises I liked, because there was a couple. One of them was where we had to keep an egg from breaking, so we had to drop it from a certain height. You had to keep the egg from breaking, so we had a couple what's it called? We had a couple of materials that we could use for keeping the egg safe. And did we win that? I think we did. Yeah, we won. Yeah, we won that. It was me, Eric, and Jada, and we all we got these coffee strainers and cotton balls, and we put the egg in the middle, and we taped it. We taped it all together, and once we dropped it off the stage, it somehow survived. I didn't know. I didn't think it was gonna survive, but it did. And the thing I personally learned is hard work pays off, and that waking up early in the morning does, because I hate waking up early in the morning. But it really did pay off, because I learned leadership skills and traits that I could use more in the future, or towards school activities and teaching other people.
My name is Eric Harriet, and personally, I learned to get something to try, because at first I didn't want to go to it, but when I gave it a try, I really liked it. So, yeah, but this year, we selected more than 60 students to be student leaders. The group that we went through this summer training will be the student leaders, and then they will deliver lessons to the homeroom. We hope that this will help all of our City Hill Middle School students to demonstrate good character traits.
So we're really excited, and I love bringing students. I think student voice is the most important thing in all of this. A lot of what we are spending our time on is not just growing students, but growing adults, growing leadership. I'm growing as a leader. We're asking that our teachers really stretch themselves and grow. So our theme is know, grow thy learner, and know, grow thyself. And we needed to, because we had hired so many people, we needed to spend a little bit of time doing some team building with the adults as well. So while the students spoke about team building, we did the same thing in the few days that we had before school began. One of the activities that they did, and you can see it referenced here, is each team built a collective resume. And that was really interesting. They got to know a little bit more about their strengths and talents and how they would all mesh together as a team. The first thing that we wanted to do when we were thinking about teaching and learning for adults is to really emphasize culture and climate, and to think about doing things in a different manner. So if you look at our concept map on the left, we often have our teachers use concept maps for students so they know where the curriculum is going. We're also using it for our adults. So you can see some of the arrows there are things that we have already introduced our staff to. So everybody has created respect agreements with their class. We've spent some time integrating mindfulness to our classrooms, using restorative nonviolent language with students, working together to create collaborative and proactive solutions. And we have a de-escalation space, our meta moment space, in all of our classrooms. What's quick on the horizon is student involvement, as you saw. Tomorrow is when we begin interviewing our students for the leadership position. Everybody who was interested was permitted to sign up for that, and we're going to use as many as we can. And then restorative circles. We've dabbled in restorative circles, but we want to bring that to a larger scale this year. So those yellow arrows are where we're headed. We did ask teachers to think about what would a culture and climate that was positive in classrooms, what would that look like and sound like and feel like? And the teachers spent time in groups. That was one of their team building activities. And then we co-constructed our guiding principles and our non-negotiables. This is what we all agree to do in our classroom. And then we invite volunteers along with our leadership team to walk through the rooms and see what do we see? Do we see these look-fors that we all agreed upon? Where do we need to grow? We then publish a weekly list. These are the glows. This is what we love when we went through and we walked. And this is where we think we can continue to grow. And that's something that we use so that we're always growing. In addition to using our culture and climate checklist, we also have created and co-constructed a high-quality learning experience walkthrough tool. We use that to make sure that every class is engaged all the time, every learner is engaged every day. We're looking for our students to experience diverse and rich literature. We want to make sure that the tasks are engaging. We want to ensure that there's academic discourse and just-in-time feedback. And that feedback is teacher to teacher, teacher to student, and student to student. Curriculum revision has been pretty much widespread through all of the different content areas. So our professional learning communities are meeting to continue to plan their high quality learning experiences. We are putting a spotlight on interactive notebooks so that students can trace their own thinking and promote reflection and inquiry. We continue to have visible concept maps and standard walls in all the classrooms so students know where the learning is coming from and where it is going. These are just some artifacts. This is how students are getting engaged in the content and how they're making meaning of the new learning. If you walk through City Hill, we are trying to make the use of notebooks widespread so that students can really capture and think about the new content. And we're asking that teachers use common language to deepen that thinking. How can you elaborate more upon that? How can you draw or visually represent your ideas? Can you explain your thinking? Can you tell me more about that? So these are practices that we're trying to make widespread in our school. And we have a lot of new staff. So calibrating and getting on the same page is going to be a challenge this year, but it's something that we're working towards. In addition to that, we have our farm to school integration. We have tried to put our farm to school everywhere. So we look for evidence of it in our cafeteria, in our community, and in our classroom. And we have a really dynamic team. Shout out to Teresa Rengel, who helped get this going. She has brought the concept of farm to school integration to our school. No, it's not something that we've done often in a middle school, but I can tell you that the kids have really taken to it and are really excited about some of the changes in our cafeteria and some of the new courses. In addition to the farm to school integration in some of our electives, we've also added that flavor to our humanities. Our humanities is a new course this year. So in addition to their language arts class, they also have one extra added literacy instruction, and we can embed our reading, our social studies, the arts. And because we wanted everyone to know that we were a farm to school institute and it wouldn't be just saved for those that were in the elective, we have put that flair into our humanities. So our first unit is food and ourselves, the story of us and our food. We will be celebrating with a cultural heritage fair coming soon, somewhere between the end of November and December. We're really excited about that. Another new course is STEM. So this is another opportunity. Each of the students in the STEM class have grow gardens that we were able to purchase, and they can follow their herbs. We started fairly small in that class. They're making a variety of different herbs that our cafeteria is incorporating into the food. So that's kind of neat because they can see where it's going. We're also sneaking in 18 additional hours of experiential math instruction, and that math instruction should help to drive our scores and drive our achievement. Students can preview some of their science and math concepts in an experiential way before they have to get into math and science classes and actually experience. So our STEM classes have been engaging for our students. They're really enjoying that. We took a little bit of data, and we have 93% of our students enjoy their enrichment classes. Those are the new classes that we added. 85% are enjoying their extra unified arts class. We allowed them to choose this year. And 90% of our students enrolled in sustainable gardening love their class as well. So anything new that we added, the kids are giving us the thumbs up. Okay, Mrs. Cooney. Okay, I knew there was more. In addition to our regular courses, we also are continuing to do interventions and supports with our students who are enrolled in our tiers 2 and 3. So we have small group instruction in math and ELA in addition to their classes. And we also are using mini lessons and small group instruction within the actual math classes and their ELA classes in a workshop fashion. Similarly to last year and previous years, we know that communication to our community and with our students and with our teachers and parents is really important. So in terms of family engagement, we started with the farmers market in September. October, we are offering a parent workshop called Creating Resilient Students to help our families, to help their students to be resilient. We know that mild adversity is part of the growing process, and it's important to embrace that. We also have a trunk or treat, and we're using a farm to school flair with that so that we incorporate that as well. That's coming up in November. It's family movie night and a cultural heritage fair. Every week we send out something for our families. They get a weekly snapshot, which kind of captures what happened that week in the curriculum and what's coming ahead for events. And our faculty get a Monday memo. I send that out usually Thursday night, so they have the weekend to digest what's coming up for the coming week. We also have included this week, we started it actually 2 weeks ago based on some feedback from faculty that they wanted to feel more informed. We now do a daily announcement for faculty. And that permits us to give everybody a heads up which bathrooms are open, who's out and who's covering. So they're not calling for a room when no one is there. Those kinds of things, while they might seem small to us, are really important to a teacher's day to help them do their job. We also sent out a faculty survey, we sent out a family survey, and we sent out a student survey about 10 days ago just to say, hey, how we doing? What can we improve upon? and I asked our faculty, what do you need from your administrator to do your job? What gets in the way of doing your job? We then followed up with some tweaks and some changes, and we addressed some of their concerns. I'm not going to, in interest of time, show you either of these, but these are just two more ways that we communicate. We try to capture some of what's going on in short movies. I'll be sending out the movie on the right, which is our farm to school integration, fairly soon to families and to our board. And the video on the left was already sent out to our community and our families. And that captures all of our students just expressing what Hispanic Heritage Month means to them. And that's a really beautiful video. Our faculty are engaged in that, and our students as well. Oop, nope, didn't want to do it. And that's the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you so much. You were a really nice audience.
Thank you, Mrs. Mezzo. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, and thank you to the students. Good job.
Students, can you stand one last time? Please stand up. Did a great job. Great, yeah, so. Yes, please. So last year, the Connecticut State Department of Education conducted a civil rights compliance review at Naugatuck High School. The review is a federal requirement from the United States Department of Education. Part of the process included basically a two-prong approach. One was a review of the facilities related to accessibility, and the other was an on-site review where they reviewed policies, procedures, forms, interviewed administrators, certified and non-certified staff, and students. I'm happy to report that there were no issues or violations, no compliance issues related to civil rights. And I am going to share with you, or just highlight rather, both the commendations and the recommendations. So commendations, students whom we interviewed represented, do you mind blowing that up just a little bit? Thank you. Yes, it is, as I am getting older today, as was highlighted by the board chair. Thank you. Yes, excellent. The students whom we interviewed represented a fair cross-section of the student population and responded openly and honestly to all questions. The school facilities and grounds were very clean and well-maintained. Mr. Scully. Continuing recommendations, continue providing professional development to faculty and staff on cultural sensitivity and culturally responsive education. Continue implementing different strategies to help educate students about Title IX and the role of the Title IX coordinator. Continue providing professional development to update faculty and staff on non-discrimination policies and practices, Title IX and Section 504. So really a big thanks to Mrs. Cooney, Mr. Bernardi, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Santana for all of the work that they did to provide really the copious policies, forms, layouts of the building, reviews of the facility, so that we met with success, and we're happy certainly to share that with the board. The full report is there for your review. If there are no questions related to the civil rights compliance review, I will move into the Connecticut approved reading programs. So recent legislation, Section 10-14 GG of the Connecticut General Statutes, called for the school year commencing July 1, 2023, and each school year thereafter, that each local and regional Board of Education implement an approved reading program for pre-K 3. So on September 30th, we received a memo from the Connecticut State Department of Education with the 6 programs, if you don't mind scrolling, and once again, increasing a little bit. The 6 programs that were approved are listed here in this memo. And those were approved by the newly created through legislation Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success. So if you scroll down a little more, Mrs. Cooney, please, you'll see that the key dates are December 16th. We have to provide the state of Connecticut with our intention based on one of these options bulleted out. We're either going to implement an approved curriculum program, we're going to submit an application or a waiver, submitting data and our current reading program to see if it will pass the waiver for implementation, or we're going to request an extension of 1 year because we lack resources and or funding. So you should know that this is an unfunded mandate. To implement the new reading program, we don't have estimates yet, but I would guess $100,000 to $150,000. And then if we are going to submit a waiver, we must submit the waiver by February 28th. So that's a fast track into vet out the programs. But the state is really driven by the legislation. The State Department is providing the timeline based on what is legislated. So that said, our course of action right now is to do both. We are currently meeting with some of the companies, and we are intending to pilot 2, and at the same time, put a waiver in. Because it could be that we have a hybrid approach where we are doing some things better than some of these programs, but our goal is to provide the best programming, best curricula to students. And we're going to take this opportunity to vet out some of those new reading programs and submit a waiver. And then in the near future, we'll convene a curriculum committee meeting and share the results. First, share the plan for the pilot and share some of our findings. So we're currently right now engaged in really creating and soliciting feedback from some of the users. And we will use that information to make an informed decision for the upcoming school year. Questions? Yes. That's what we're attempting to do, but it could be 3 after we're done doing some research.
We've been having problems right along where new programs are dropping in too fast for people to catch up on. What's the sense of changing everybody's curriculums again? We have a good curriculum director. Ours should be up to par anyways. Just put that through.
Yeah, so I think that you bring forth a really valid point. It's when you're changing everything at a fast pace, it's hard and it becomes a burden on teachers who have a really, really hard job. If we end up moving and changing in a reading program, we would take that into consideration and develop an implementation plan where we can provide the tools and the supports necessary. That might mean that we pull back on some other changes that we had been intending. But I will say, Mr. Scully, that we don't currently implement one of the 5 or the 6. And there is no guarantee that we would submit a successful waiver. And if one of these programs has components that can supplement and enhance what we're providing students, then we would perhaps do some type of hybrid. We just don't know. It's a really big decision and a really tight timeline. But to your point, we are going to consider teachers' capacity and the burden that a number of programs and new programs really places upon them and try to develop a timeline that's sensitive to that. That being said, as of right now, if we don't get the waiver, we have to go with one of these 6. Yeah, well, so this is the hottest topic right now. If you were to talk to a lot of groups, CAPs and superintendents, lots of conversation around educators should be picking the reading program, not legislatures. legislators. Yeah. Yeah.
State Board of Education helped us out by lobbying against this.
So there's a lot of lobbying right now to loosen the waiver requirements, to delay some of the timelines, but the state can't do any of that. It's up to because it's legislated. So if there's going to be a change, it needs to go back to legislators. So there's lots of groups, superintendent group, CAPS. I don't know, I haven't heard CABE yet, but they're lobbying CAPS is significantly to allow them to loosen the guidelines. So let's not forget the other angle here. We happen to be an alliance district, but there's lots of districts in Connecticut that exceed everybody else in the country. So Connecticut as a whole has some of the best reading scores. So there's also the argument that, I'm one of the best in the country and you're gonna, so yeah, Naugatuck's not there yet, but we will be eventually.
It just drives me crazy when they keep throwing these mandates at you.
Yes, this is frustrating. I'm hoping that through this mandate or through some of these programs that we'll find something that will enhance or supplement our program and it'll be good for our students. But at this point, we really don't know. We have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Superintendent Montini. That then brings us into our monthly reports. And that's our student rep report. I will turn it over to Ruby and Josephine.
All right, good evening, everyone. Before I start, I just wanted to say that last month we reported that we would be partnering with the journalism classes to do an article on every month's report. So I just wanted to welcome Jalen Kinney here, who is one of the editors for the journalism class. He'll be writing an article on this month's meeting. So welcome to him. But for this month, so yesterday, high school students took standardized tests and participated in post-secondary planning. So freshmen took the iReady exam, sophomores and juniors took the PSAT, and seniors had a college and career planning workshop where they were able to meet with military recruiters, college reps, and work on the FAFSA. So yeah.
The student council has begun planning for fall activities, so homecoming and Spirit Week. Homecoming will be on November 18th with a masquerade or Mardi Gras theme, and the plans for Spirit Week activities are being finalized now.
And so at the end of September, we sent out a survey to the Naugatuck High School student body and asked for feedback on the back to school experience for this school year. For a multiple choice response, or like 1 to 10 response, we got a 77% positive or neutral response when students were asked to rate their back to school experience from 1 to 10, and we described neutral or positive as a 5 to 10 response. And then as an open-ended response, students described their return to school as smooth, exciting, welcoming, and pleasant. And then if you scroll below, there's a full breakdown of the quantifiable responses.
Students expressed excitement for school activities as well, such as prom, homecoming, senior activities, Spirit Week, sports games, classes, and for seniors, a lot of college and post-secondary world things.
And then finally, students did express some concerns regarding college and post-secondary planning, as well as some academic stress. So we'll be working with the high school administration to address these concerns at a school level rather than district. So, yeah.
Thank you, guys. That brings us to our facility use report. Any questions on the facility use report?
Just let me point out that the community choir hasn't started to rehearse yet, but we're holding the space and hopefully by January we'll be in the building.
Thank you, Ethel. That brings us to our human resources report. Any questions on the human resources report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our enrollment report. Any questions on the enrollment report?
Mr. Montini, can you, just talk about kind of the large, I think it's second grade class, I believe I saw? It's a large population this year. I noticed that the average classroom population was still low, which was great. Was there anticipation of that? Did we know that that was coming, or is that like a surprise to us? And same with the other question that I had too, that you might be able to tie in, is I also noticed a really small freshman student body this year at the high school in comparative to any of the other grades. I just wondered if you had any comments or explanation to those.
So
It was like 400. I don't know. Maybe I looked at it wrong. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up again.
So are you talking about an individual class or like series of classes, like fourth grade at Hop Brook has 28, 27, 27? Or are you talking about overall
Grade
the
population.
total number of
Yeah.
second graders?
Yep.
So the total number of second graders is actually 285. That's a little low.
Oh, okay. So maybe I
So-
was looking at the wrong
so
one.
we
What's the
have-
one that's the 400?
No, the 400 would likely be the total number for a school if you're going down.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's
what I was
Maple
looking at
Hill.
wrong.
Yeah, that's Maple Hill.
Thank you.
No, so
Freshman classes.
the freshman class is smaller. Let's see, grade 9.
I'm just wondering if people are going away from that. That's what my concern is.
So I'll provide you very soon a breakdown. When we do our budget, we compare using the October PSIS information. We compare to last year, so October to October. And we also go, when we're making our budget book, take a look at what we projected and what is the current October numbers. So based on the 289 for the freshman class, I'm going to say no, there is not highly off what was projected. It's right around that 300 number. So generally, your largest class is grade 12, because if we have a 90% graduation rate and 10% of 300, those 30 kids don't graduate, then they're repeat seniors. So generally, your grade 12 are a little higher. And the closer we get to 100, the closer that would reduce back to be more in line with the other grade levels. Yeah.
And can I just thank you for the out-of-district enrollment chart? It's good to see that, to see where our students are going.
Okay, that brings us to our finance report. Any questions on the finance report? See none. Brings us to the fire drill report. Any questions on the fire drill?
It appears that way. Unless there's a clerical error, so we will seek to find out if it was a clerical or if there was no code.
Any other questions? Brings us to a field trip. Could I have a motion to approve the AFJROTC overnight trip to Camp Net at Niantic on October 19th through the 21st, 2022? Do we have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell? Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Grant. Any discussion?
And just, I noticed that it's 40 kids and one chaperone. Is that enough? Oh, there's two?
Well, it's the coordinator, actually.
Okay.
seeing it. So depending on the type of activity, and most times we would ask for more, but this is structured and this is an annual, they go and it's part of JROTC structured. So
Gotcha.
there'll be other folks there. So sort of like if you're going to go to a play versus if you're going to go to somewhere where the students are going to be active in the lower grades,
Understood.
So generally 2 is low, but I think for this, it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Brings us to old business and an update on the P cards.
And I will take that, and if there's questions, I will ask Mrs. Risk to assist. So we have entered into the agreement, and we're in setup mode. But a lot of the offices where we are working with on generating the P cards, we're in Florida and are impacted by Hurricane Ian. So it's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks, may take a little bit longer. But we're encouraged, right as the board was voting for and approving P cards, our parent school council came to us with a need that we think P cards will address. And that's parents having to front the money to pay for things that occur with the parent school council, and that the P cards are going to be a tightly controlled way to help them out. So I'm excited on October 24th to bring them the idea that in the near future we'll utilize on a small scale P cards with some of the school groups to alleviate and address some of their concerns. If there's any questions, we will be happy to answer, but really there's no new news other than it'll take 4 to 6 weeks for us to get going.
About last month,
Yes,
and there was only supposed to be 1 or 2 cards.
there's only 1 or 2 that can authorize, myself or Mrs. Risk.
But there's going to be more than 1 P card out there.
Yeah, but they won't have any money on it so it's sort of like a blank gift card. So the PSC would call up Bernice, say, we're going to do an assembly. It's going to cost $500. Bernice will go in, say $500 on the Hopbrook card, get it from the principal. It'll be from Amazon because that's where they're getting their stuff for their assembly or program. And then that's it. Bernice can control it. You have 24 hours to send it. Send me the receipts. So, I mean, I'm being, but it's a way to control rather than a credit card to front load a specified amount. What our parents came to us and said was, many of us are paycheck to paycheck. I can't go in, I don't have a credit card. I'm taking $500 out of my checking account. In accounting procedures, we're not going to, they don't have access to a checkbook based on our auditors. So this is what we believe is a tightly controlled fix to that.
Because with parents, there used to be accounts set up for each one of them.
And there
at a
is.
bank.
And there is, but that's controlled by us.
Right. And if they needed money, they called.
But they can't get the money in the front end. They can only get it in the back end with receipts. P cards is a way to give them to them in a controlled way on the front end. Yeah,
Chris, can I help out here?
yeah, of course.
So PTOs do activities and stuff. So like City Hill, we're just planning our color run. And as the PTO, we had to upfront the money to get the stuff. Then we get the receipt or the invoice. Then we have to take it. It's coming out of our pocket. Then we have to take it to central office and they reimburse. And sometimes that can take 6 weeks. So your parents are without the money.
But I remember when we changed this over, it was supposed to handle the money and everything, because we took it all away from them at one point, because they had the money at hand.
Mhm.
And it was supposed to be the same way, but we were handling the control of it.
And you're exactly right. But that still requires them to pay, provide a receipt, and then get reimbursed. So that doesn't work for many people, for a lot of our parents. That's what they've communicated to us. Even if we turned around in one day and gave them the check, they're charging or using a debit card to buy whatever it is that they're attempting to buy for students. So now, instead of submitting the receipt the day after you've paid, they can call up and Bernice can pre-populate a specific amount on one of these cards for them to use. And it would come out of their account yes. So it's almost like you're giving them, you go to Stop and Shop and you get a gift card for $50. That's essentially what Bernice is able to provide to them. And with the tight controls.
Yeah, I was under the understanding.
Yeah, so right now, we've only identified our parent groups that would like to use them, and not all parent groups, but we'll see. And paying for our phone bill. Those are really the only two things that we've identified now. We'll keep you in the loop and keep you updated. They do not. They're able to purchase everything through purchase orders and yep, if there's not, then we would use one. Yep. But just one last final thought, a P card in the desk of a principal is going to have nothing on it until the need is the specific need is communicated, and then she'll go kind of load it up.
And that's only in the situation where, that sort of payment is required. It's not going to be, for large scale stuff that we buy at the board level. Or
No.
at the district level.
No, that'll continue to be handled through.
This was just a workaround for those sort of situations. And
Correct.
like we said, the phone systems.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. That brings us to new business. So we have a number of first read policies on here. You have a memo. Okay. If you want to.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to. So the policies that were reviewed with the policy committee for first read. First is the policy to improve the completion rates of FAFSA. This is a first read. It's a brand new policy. Public Act 21-199 directs boards of education no later than July 1, 2022 to adopt a policy to improve completion rates of FAFSA by students enrolled in grade 12, and if the district has an adult education program. So we have a policy that meets the statutory requirements. It's nice to hear that yesterday there was a workshop related to FAFSA already, and we're underway helping students complete. Last year, we had 56% of students complete. This year, we recently received a grant, a small grant in the amount of $9,000. We were eligible for what's called the FAFSA Challenge, which will help us reach out, do community outreach, do the things that we need to do to educate families, support families, and students in the completion of these forms. So what you have is the FAFSA policy, 5532, and the associated administrative regulations. Mrs. Grant, as the policy chair, asked of me who was on some of these FAFSA teams. And right now we have Dr. Felder McIntyre, the associate principal, Denise DeFudo, the lead counselor, and Matt LaPlaca, the social studies teacher on the team, and they're actively recruiting more folks to be on the FAFSA team. They've already held a financial workshop for seniors yesterday, and a financial aid night. The school counselors did that already. So it was also requested from the policy committee that either separately or embedded in the high school's presentation that we report out and share with you the efforts to improve tests. And we'll embed that in their conversation. They're going to come present to you in January. Any questions related to FAFSA? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, I just want to say thank you for providing that information to the policy committee. That's why I appreciate it.
The next policy is also a new policy required by law. Now, we participate, as you know, in the community eligibility provision, which means that all of our students, based on the town-wide economic data, are eligible for free and reduced lunch. We no longer send out applications where there's the criteria based on household income. The new policy that we've included here is related to meal charging. There are certain stipulations that students cannot be treated if we were to charge, students cannot be treated differently if they don't have the money to pay for a lunch. No more, you get a cheese sandwich, or you can only have a bagel if you didn't bring your money. You also can't be basically chastised or treated differently. So what we did here is we took the policy from our attorneys and we just added a paragraph to it that basically says, we're in CEP. In the event that we no longer participate, the following policy will go into effect. Any questions? It's a first read. If you have any now, if not, again, you can email me or happy to answer at next board meeting as well. The next policy, policy 4400 and the associated administrative regulations it's a revision to a current policy, and it's really just cleanup where the attorneys are bringing up to date the list of, yeah, so that's great. If you can just enlarge it a little bit. It's the theme. So they change email to electronic messaging systems because, as you know, technology grows faster than anything. So the policy basically is just renaming and making some technical edits as to what we are calling devices. There's no real major changes there. It adds Instagram to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. The next set of policy, the policy and administrative regulations for the student use of district computer systems is the same. They're just making the changes on both policies. One's for employees, one's for students, changing email to electronic messaging systems and updating how they're describing the devices. Any questions about that policy thus far? So the next policy, physical activity, undirected play, and student discipline, really is a minor change. But by law, you can't take away undirected recess, essentially, but undirected play for students unless, and that's what this policy spells out. So if you scroll, Mrs. Cooney, please, to the red sentence. So basically, the sentence that's crossed out in our existing policy. So what's crossed off in red is our existing policy. I'm going to read that paragraph aloud. In effort to promote physical exercise and undirected play, the board prohibits school employees from disciplining elementary school students by preventing them from participating in the full 20 minutes of time devoted to physical exercise or additional time devoted to undirected play during the regular school day, except in instances where the student's behavior poses a health and or safety concern. Or, so that was taken out, but basically we already had it in the policy. So the changes, they might look like there's a lot, but if you scroll now to the next page, you'll see that number one, in blue, when a student poses a danger to the health or safety of other students or school personnel, or number two, if there are 2 or more periods devoted to physical exercise in a school day, then the prevention or the restriction of physical exercise, you could take away some, as long as they have the 20. So if we don't have the 2 recess blocks, but if you did, you have to maintain that they get by law the 20 minutes. So really, that's not much different. The only difference is now it spells out school employees, again, may not prevent or restrict a student from participating in the entire time devoted. If such prevention or restriction is related to students' failure to complete schoolwork on time or students' academic performance. So that's the real change. But our existing policy basically said you can't take it away unless it's unsafe anyway. So really just minor changes that looks like more, But the updating of the law, our attorneys updated it to this verbiage. But really, the message is still there. They just enumerate the two stipulated stipulations to taking it away. Questions?
Great. And again, these are all first reads, so they will be voted on next month. So if you read through them over the course of the month and have any questions, please feel free to bring them and any suggested changes. That will bring us to the 2023 board meeting schedule vote. As you'll see, our schedule of meetings is there, the second Thursday of the month, except in April, which I believe is because it's spring break. So it's the first Thursday, and then May, I forget.
Yep, that's okay. So in the May, every year, the community network of which I am a part, the superintendent network, convenes a professional learning opportunity at Harvard. And this year it's taking place during the second meeting. So I approached the chair and asked if we would hold the meeting on the first Thursday. So if you are obviously in agreement, you'd vote. If not, you could vote this down and we would put back the second Thursday. And at that point, then I would not attend the Harvard for the leadership opportunity.
Thank you for the recollection. I do remember
Yes.
saying that it would be okay. Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 board meeting schedule?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi, a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to the 2022-2023 Alliance Grant approval. Ms. Cooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Each year, we bring the Alliance grant to you for approval. And this year, I've provided for you a copy of the entire Alliance grant. And in addition, I have a summary of existing and what I have listed as new strategies. But as you can see, they're not exactly new to you as a group because you have voted to approve some of these positions through the budget approval or last month when we added an additional grade 4 teacher at Hopbrook School based on their class size. And we've also been apprising you of the increase in our EL population. And based on that increase, we are required to provide bilingual native language support in 5 of our schools and have included and added a required bilingual certified native language support teacher to be able to provide that instruction.
All those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That behavior support assistant.
So, Mr. Chair, what we have for you is a job description. We need to create and establish what we're calling behavior support assistants. Numerous communities, especially alliance districts, employ jobs with this title or similar titles. Essentially, it's a job that works under the supervision of building administrators to support a positive and safe school climate, responding to situations in both tier 2, tier 3, behavior management systems, supporting student behavior in the classroom, hallways, cafeterias, bus, etc. So we are looking to pilot 2 of these positions this year at City Hill School. We wrote 2 into one of our grants. We're bringing this to you now so that we can get the job description approved. Hopefully pilot 2 at City Hill for the second half of the year, and then we would discuss this with you throughout the budget process in regards to what we're thinking, where they might be helpful. So as you know, the last few years, we've had increased volume and occurrences of students who present with behavioral difficulties, dysregulation, and additional folks who we provide training in regards to de-escalation techniques, in regards to positive behavior support systems, related to restorative and responsive classrooms, would be an asset to our school communities as we hope to provide the safest and calmest of environments for all of our students in which to learn. This coincides at City Hill coincidentally with the departure. So as you know, Mrs. Kane is filling in with the role related to Project Aware, but she's also housed in City Hill. We would be able to get these folks in place. The other thing that I neglected to say is the assistant principal, Ms. Crishone, at City Hill Middle School had behavior support assistants in Waterbury. So we, in terms of getting it, launching it off the ground, she would be instrumental in helping us develop it with establishing the training that we would like to do this year as a pilot, and then through the budget process again, bring to you for your consideration.
Can I just ask, why wouldn't we want a certified person? You have here preferred, let's see, what does it say? Yeah, bachelor's degree preferred. Why wouldn't we just go right for a bachelor's degree?
So certified or bachelor's, we can, but we know we have some folks with associates or who are working in our school systems who are exceptional, that we could provide training to, and we're just looking to keep it open with bachelor's preferred so that we can have a larger talent pool.
Okay,
This
so
is a $25 an hour, about a $30,000 job. It's a non-certified.
yeah,
We have administrators. I'm not looking to put 2 more administrators at City Hill.
right.
I'm looking to have more folks to support and implement the programs under the supervision of the administrators. And as you know, we have schools where our principals, now they're smaller elementary schools, but we have an Andrew Avenue and a Western and a Salem where the principal is it. They're the only ones. So that we'd be taking a look at this. If we were able to we'd evaluate this in the context of all of our needs in the budget process to bring you what the recommendations would be. Right now, I'm asking you to approve the job description and 2 grant-funded positions really just through the end of the year so that we can pilot it, have more information. Then if it's going to be a long-term strategy, we'll start talking about it November, January through March when we present to the town. So Waterbury and your Manchesters and your Windsors and New Britons and lots of the alliance districts and non-alliance districts have positions that are similar, where you can either take some of your existing folks that are performing really well and provide additional training and perhaps a little boost in pay, or go out and find folks that are in the community or are retired from other positions that want to work with kids and help them make good choices every day.
And is this a non-union position?
This is a non-union position.
And they are receiving training.
They will. That's why we're bringing this to you now. When we would be developing, the job description's the first step, and then developing the training is next.
Yeah.
Would this take over for some of the security guards?
I guess we would evaluate the impact of this position as it relates to other things. Perhaps it may. I don't. It could. I don't know yet. But I'd be open to being, open and honest and evaluating how impactful this is. If the position lives with Mrs. Mezzo and her team, she'd be putting forth a budget which would include the personnel that she thinks are going to best meet the needs of City Hill. So maybe it's, I want one more of these. I could go with one less security, or maybe it's security are going to complete these roles, and we're going to enhance what's going on with, 2 additional behavior support assistants.
The people that we are hiring under this grant, they're already certified in this? They're going to teach our other people? Or?
No, we have not identified anybody. What we did was we have an identified need that we wrote a job description for. Then we'll go look to recruit folks. We will train them. What we're going to do is take advantage of our assistant principal at the middle school who operated with behavior support assistants in Waterbury. They already had them. So she's going to help us create the training, the training program schedule.
Okay.
And a lot of it's getting acclimated to what we have, the de-escalation program that we have, the responsive classroom and or restorative that we have, et cetera. The expectations, positive behavior supports.
Well, we understand that we need to give City Hill every opportunity to succeed as much as we can. So that makes perfect sense. And I love taking advantage of the assistant principal's experience in this field. That makes a lot of sense to me. When I think about when I was reading this position, it's got to be a pretty special person to do this job. Wouldn't you agree, Mrs. Mezzo? So this is going to be decided at the local level as to who is going to be the candidates for this position, I'm assuming.
Yes, you mean the principal or the school is
Yep.
going to choose?
Yep.
Yeah, but it will likely, with input from central office. So all certified staff have a final interview or at least a first interview with myself or Mrs. Cooney.
Awesome.
This is one of those in-between positions.
Right.
We haven't determined whether we'll embed someone from central office, we'll embed Ms. Reichart might be perfect, or
Right.
we'll have her or somebody from her team join as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we understand that
it'll
it's a
be
pilot.
comprehensive.
It's a pilot program. We're going to try it out. We're going to see how we do and see how it fits in our program as we're trying to improve it. So that makes sense.
And we have an identified need in multiple schools. It just comes down to putting all the needs together and identifying what the cost is of those needs and what we're able to accomplish or find funding for or ask the board and put it in our budget and ask the town for.
Understood. Thank you.
Great. Could I then have a motion to approve the behavior support assistant job description? We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Gallo. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Noted that Mr. Scully abstains. That motion passes. That brings us into set tuition rates for the 2022-2023 school year.
Great. Once again, I'll start us off, and if there's questions and I need some support, Mrs. Risk is available. So we are asking that the board approve, a motion to approve the tuition rates for the 22-23 school year. Doing things a little different this year, much cleaner and in line with the way that the majority of the districts throughout the state of Connecticut do it. We are asking that you approve the regular education tuition rate in the amount of $17,275. Mrs. Risk calculated that amount by going back to the per pupil expenditure that was listed from the State Department of Education and increasing that by 3%. Because we have to go back to such in the rear for the data, we won't have the current cost until the year's over. Since the data is always in the rear, the board's practice has been 3%. What we're going to do differently or asking you to vote on differently is that the recommendation for special education, not to set predetermined rates. Predetermined rates are, I would say, guesses at best. That Mrs. Reichart, if the student we are billing for tuition, will determine the exact cost of the services that are provided to that individual and bill the municipality that amount. Right now, I believe we have 5. Most of the time, it's when they're placed, if they're placed by, let's say, a DCF or a foster home. So just like we'll have students that we're paying other districts because they were placed in another community. There are people that want to, but we don't currently have people who are choosing to pay from pocket the tuition rate. 17,000 is not cheap. Yeah. Of course.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that if I'm a special ed student from out of town, that we're going to calculate exactly how much it costs to provide me services. Does that mean student A, so Pete and I come to one of our schools, Pete is with a more experienced teacher on a higher end of the scale, and I'm with a brand new teacher, so my expenses will be less?
So
I mean, it just
no,
sounds, yeah,
we're going to use a fixed cost for the teacher. We're actually going
Okay.
to use the regular education tuition for all teachers, 17,000.
okay,
But then we're going to bill for if they get 1 hour of speech a week, if they
Okay.
get PT.
okay,
If we do it any other way, it really would be, could be unfair to the other district. So let's just say it's a teacher making 100,000, but it's also a class that only has 8 kids.
right,
Well, that's vastly different from somebody making 50,000 divided by 25 kids, to
right,
your point.
exactly.
So no,
yeah.
the standard is, which is why we're doing it this way, the standard is 17,000 for our teacher. That's the sort of tier 1 cost. And then the other services would be add-ons that you would calculate. And we're going to use, that you would calculate the cost of.
And we'd publish that menu of what those services were worth.
Well,
We wouldn't
that-
calculate it per individual
per
student.
individual, what the speech therapist cost. So there it would be,
Right, that's
Yes.
exactly why I'm asking the question.
yes, exact costs.
Okay,
I don't
Okay.
think in that way there'll be as much vacillation as there would if we were dividing by the number of students.
mm, mm. Okay,
I mean, if you have a recommendation, I mean, one of the things we can do is we could earmark a specific lane. So we could say, we're doing master 16 for everybody.
yeah,
If the board would prefer a consistent salary point.
honestly, it's a personal reaction based on parents sitting in a PPT, and now you have people saying, well, I don't know, I think I want this teacher because she's fresh out of college, and it's not going to cost me
Yeah,
as much,
they
so
wouldn't-
I can afford to send my kid to school.
Right, but right now, we haven't had any parents pay. It's always another district.
Okay,
And it's usually relatively a wash. So we have 5 currently from other districts that are paying us. We're paying other districts.
okay.
This is a better way of doing it
No, I can
than we
see that.
previously did. So what we
I
ended
can
up
see
doing is
that.
we went back last year,
Right,
and if we have a predetermined rate, well, the predetermined rate you could undercharge, we are undercharging in some instances related to that service and overcharging in others.
mhm,
Here, we're just billing, what you're paying for what you get.
right,
And the PPT determines that, and they're not aware of who's costing what. They're
Yeah,
doing it the
right.
right way. What does the student need? And then the special ed directors on the back end are working with business managers to settle
Gotcha.
up.
okay, all right, that makes more sense, thank you.
So the tuitions you're paying every month, what they're paying us?
Yes, they're in line. I think they would not be in line if we kept our practice of how we were doing last year. We basically went to bill a community and they're like, what? And it was way out of whack. It was way over. So that's what we're We're asking for a vote to approve the tuition rates as presented.
So as the superintendent stated, could I have a motion to approve the tuition rates for the 2022-2023 school year as presented? We have a motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second? And a second by Mayor Hess. Any discussion?
Rates last year.
What was say that again?
The
Like, what-
tuition rates last year.
so it's on the memo, the tuition rate was 16,283. But we also broke it out. We had a table that broke it out. This much for resource support, this much for speech, this much for, and those numbers were not accurate enough. We had started years ago with a number and then would add 3% a year. So some of those rates got compounded so much, like compounding interest, that they were way out of whack. And that's what we said, we made the decision. And Bernice and Mrs. Risk and Mrs. Reichart also polled their organizations to see what other business managers and other special education directors do. And they bill for services provided.
Thank you. So, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to the approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 1st, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Grant. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Noted that Ms. Gallo abstains. Could I then have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 8th, 2022 regular monthly meeting of the Board of Education? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Noted that Ms. Gallo abstains from that. Could I then have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 12th, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting? We have a motion by Ms. Makowski. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Again, noted that Ms. Gallo abstains. Can I then have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? And noted again that Ms. Gallo abstains. That then brings us into communications. So the facilities walkthrough, as you'll see in the memo, the dates and times for our facility walkthroughs are noted. These are conducted as part of the facilities committee. So obviously facility committee members, which Mr. Scully is the chair, would attend. And if you do want to attend, there is room for one other individual to attend so there's not a quorum. But does anyone have any questions on the dates or times? Seeing none, that brings us to adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Ms. Malone. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Scully. All those in favor? Any opposed? We're adjourned.